Hello and welcome to the Global View. On this Thursday, I'm Andrew Gagan. Good to have you with us here at AusBiz. Let's check what happened overnight. Tech stocks pushing global equity markets higher after President Donald Trump announced spending plans for artificial intelligence infrastructure. The US dollar initially weakened to a two-week low as tariffs were delayed, while bond yields edged higher. There were gains across the board on Wall Street, with the S&P 500 hitting a new record high, while the Nasdaq was buoyed by that joint venture between OpenAI, Japan's SoftBank and Oracle to invest up to $500 billion to build data AI centers. And shares in those companies surged in response, with server makers Dell and Supermicro as well, while Microsoft and Nvidia also gained, along with US traded shares of chip supplier ARM. Elsewhere, Netflix shares jumped higher, with the streaming giant having reported a record number of subscribers added for the holiday quarter of almost 19 million, while announcing price hikes at the same time. Procter & Gamble advanced after beating second quarter estimates, driven by growing demand for its household items in the US. Johnson & Johnson fell, although the drug maker did report fourth quarter results above estimates. Ford shares reversed on a broker downgrade, and Halliburton shares slipped after warning of softer activity in North America this year and posting downbeat quarterly revenue. Well, markets are awaiting more announcements from the Trump administration about policies on tariffs, immigration and tax cuts. President Trump has vowed to hit the European Union with tariffs and said his administration is discussing a 10% duty on Chinese imports. He also began his sweeping immigration crackdown, tasking the US military with aiding border security, which could put pressure on the jobs market, leading to a spike in wage growth. And the tariff threats have left the bond market in limbo, with traders hesitant to make big bets unless Trump makes more definitive policies. The yield on the 10-year was up slightly at 4.58%, the 2-year around 4.28%. And the US dollar little changed after earlier dipping to a new two-week low on uncertainty around Trump's tariff plans. The Aussie at 62.7. And Bitcoin is trading around 104,000 US dollars. In the commodities complex, oil prices have fallen to a one-week low. This, as President Trump says his administration would probably stop buying oil from Venezuela, while Saudi Arabia's crude oil exports in November jumped to their highest in 8 months. Brent futures down around 0.5% at $79 a barrel. Copper down 1%, iron ore trading around 104 US dollars a tonne, and gold has risen around 0.5% to near a 3-month high of $2,755 an ounce. That's trading just below its record peak, fueled by a softer dollar as investors seek its safe haven status. So let's unpack what we're seeing, particularly with a focus on Wall Street there. Ira Epstein joining us from Linn Associates. Ira, very good to catch up with you again. All eyes and ears on President Trump at the moment. He has hit the ground running. We knew that was going to be the case. Let's first begin with, well, certainly that announcement over AI as a positive there. Certainly investors perceived it that way, buoying tech stocks.
Well, first, the announcement on AI was coming. It was coming anyways. Remember, Larry Ellison's building 20 AI facilities each, approximately 500,000 square feet. Now, if you can imagine how many square feet that is, it's large, each one. What we're seeing now, of course, is the honeymoon. So please understand, this is when all the good things happen. This is when the president has some capital. This is when he hit the ground running. He's not a first-time president. He knows what he has to get done and how it has to be to get it done. But if you think this will stay this way, you're making a sad mistake. It's not going to. It will run until it stops in this momentum. All the tariffs you hear about will not go into place the way that you're hearing them. It'll cost too much to the U.S. It'll drive costs up, and I think the Trump administration knows it. But we had a President Teddy Roosevelt, he carry a big stick, but you didn't have to use it all the time. Well, that's exactly what this is about. The threats of the tariffs are there. China's probably the most likely to get the 10% tariff. I'm not convinced, and I said this to you last week, that Mexico will be hit with 25% tariffs. Canada's an unknown, but Europe came into the foray just yesterday when he started mentioning them to get the tariffs. We then go to the markets, and I think you look at what gold has done. And as you know, I've been friendly the gold market with you, Andrew, here for a long time. And I'm friendly Bitcoin as well. And Bitcoin hit new highs just recently. And that's because you have a president that has issued his own coins. He and Melania, just came out with their own, and instantly they were worth a lot of money, like $8-9 billion. Why? How? Just because of the mania. But step back, understand what you've got in these markets, and please don't get carried away. The stock market's up, interest rates have come down. It's January 22nd, it's early on. We're going to see the European Central Bank shortly cut rates. The Bank of Japan, I fully expect them this week to go with their rate hike of whatever basis points they decide, but that will happen. Our Fed will probably do nothing until March, and then the game is on. Which way does it all go from that point on? The market is not pricing in much of a March activity, but it could happen, and you've got to wait and see what all the data looks like.
Ira, what's your view on Trump's immigration policy? That crackdown has begun. Is he going to get his way? And if so, what are the effects, particularly on the American economy? If you lose a lot of those workers, obviously that's going to have upward pressure on jobs and wages.
We have to understand that at the beginning, he was going to get rid of everybody that's not documented. That has radically changed. Now, in fact, today, as I'm on with you no more than 10 minutes ago, the Senate passed the law now backing up. It's the Laken law. So anyone that comes into America and they're a felon or they've committed some type of crime while they're in America, the law is now you can export them. And that is who they're going to go after. They changed laws yesterday where they said you can't hide in a church or a public school away from arrest. That is going to happen as sure as we're talking. But how many people are we really talking going to be exported? So let's assume, for the sake of discussion, 15 million or so came in under the Biden free-for-all. I'd be surprised if we end up with 1 million being deported. I think it'll be a number under that. Don't get me wrong, it'll make headlines, you'll see it. But that million of felons and so on, are they really working in America? That's the very first thing. Criminals tend not to work. Criminals tend to rob or do what they're very good at, which is something illegal. But the people that are here undocumented, that stay out of harm's way, I think they'll continue to work. I think they'll give them a chance to work. And I think for that reason, we've got to understand that this probably isn't as big a deportation as you hear. The headlines will be big. You'll see people being deported away, doing all that. Okay. But who are those people? They are not going to have raids that just go into a place. Oh, you're undocumented. You're out of the country. You're undocumented and you're a felon. You're out of the country.
So, Ira, to portfolio positioning. Now, you talk about that Trump honeymoon will end. And, of course, we have seen record highs again with the S&P 500. So how do you position?
Okay, but that's the stock index. If you go to the breadth of the market, it's starting to slip away. So you always have to take a look at the indices and you have to see what's driving. A big part of today's gain was Netflix. It was up over 10%. Worldwide, they added 18 million new subscribers. The market had been expecting 8. That's a big catalyst when you go to the market. Everything AI is moving up right now. NVIDIA moving back up, Seagate moving up. And they should, because those are the people that are in front of the television set every single day getting the notice. United Airlines, very strong, record earnings. So there's no surprise here. We expected that the quarter would be a good quarter. We knew we had strong interest rates. We will hear from the companies that get hurt, the international companies on the value of the dollar. That's yet to come, and there will be some disappointment there. Our banks have just reported with these type of interest rates, you take in money, you pay X out, but you lend out at a much higher number. They're making the money, and trading has been phenomenal. But as I said, You're going to get now into a quarter where the president's in place. His team is not yet. We have to get through that. It's by the second quarter that I think you're going to see a little bit of difference. In other words, 8 to 10 weeks from now, this won't be new anymore. The Democrats will regroup in areas. They'll challenge the president on certain things. It won't be smooth, but it won't be as bad as it was. So where do you go with this? Well, number one, inflation is still here. It hasn't gone away, and it doesn't look like it'll go away from everything I'm seeing. So I like the markets that are still commodity markets. I like grain markets. I wonder if they got too cheap just recently and the market's building in the best of all worlds. That could be a problem. As for the energies, as you said, the Saudis have kicked up production to make up for loss of production now coming from Russia. 65 tankers are anchored off of China and Russia, and they're just anchored. They're not moving. They're not deploying oil. These are sanctioned tankers. Russia has to figure out what do they do next. And the Trump people are smart. They know if they go after oil, they hurt Russia and get them to the table to talk peace. And you haven't heard one word yet on Iran. I haven't heard one, and I've been looking. That's coming too. But in the meantime, we have peace that is holding up. We have the Hezbollah agreement between Israel and Hezbollah coming up now. I think it's this week. I look for that to be extended. And look at all the troops getting into Gaza at this point. I think there were 900 yesterday. So we have good things happening in the areas of the world. Why shouldn't the markets hold on right here? And with interest rates falling a bit, we're not pushing, Andrew, 4.9 anymore in the 10-year. We're down to under 4.6. It's a time to understand what you've got. But be careful if you're buying stocks. Not all stocks will go up. Oil's ready to come under a little more pressure. I'd be careful with the areas that you choose.
Ira, comprehensive analysis. Thanks for joining us from Linn Associates.
Thanks for having me.
Let's turn to the local market ahead of our open here. Looking for a negative start. In fact, SPI futures are off around 0.4%. And we are going to get going in just a couple of minutes. Stay with us.